Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speak Up Africa, where we aim to inform, engage, and empower the youth. Now, today we'll be talking about youth engagement in public policy and policy making. And before we get any further, I'd like to introduce myself and my lovely panelists as well. My name is Salami Washuka. I'm a legal intern here at Speak Up Africa, and it is great to be here today. I'll give my colleagues a chance to introduce themselves so that we can begin.
Okay, so my name is Eric Njoroge. I'm a legal intern at Speak Up as well, and a lawyer and a future advocate.
Um, Hi guys, my name is Ongoi Kamau. I'm a legal intern at Speak Up Africa and I'm looking forward to this engagement.
Thank you so much. So I think we can just get into it. And what we're talking about today is the engagement of the youth in public policy and policy making as well. And we're going to talk about how the government involves the youth and probably just highlight a few challenges in involving the youth in policy making. And hopefully we can come up with a few ideas in which the government can implement to encourage the youth to engage more in policy making and for public policy as well. So my first question is, I think I'd like to pose this to you, Wangui. What do you think are the main barriers that do prevent the youth from effectively engaging in policy making?
Okay, some of the challenges that we face is the lack of awareness when it comes to these decisions and the policies that actually need to be agreed on and decided. You find that sometimes the youth lack awareness on the same because the means of communication used to put it out there that there is a policy coming into place and there's need for engagement. There are means that do not actually that might actually not reach the youth given the generation. Another challenge I would say it's the dynamics in place and the hierarchy. So currently there are people who are already up there and that denies now the youth a chance because people will be considered to be the people with the higher say. So most of the times you'll find that people will be stereotyping, they're like these are just youth, they're Gen Zs, so their points, their opinions might not be in line with what we want to hear. So it's preferable to have those who are up there in the hierarchy. Another challenge I would say is the marginalization of the youth themselves and say how they are there's less representation of the youth because you find that now what they have done is the youth are considered marginalized so they're given chances slight positions to represent the rest of the youth instead of actually coming up with policies that act maybe institutions or something where there's a big foundation for for the youth to actually be there to represent. So find that the youth are given just slight chances, making them being termed as marginalized. I'm not sure. I think there are other points, but for now that's what I have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Eric, would you wish to add on that?
Yeah, I'd say maybe a challenge, and this is from the side of the youth. I think there's a general apathy to things that go on in our country and in society. Uh, there's this notion from the youth that if it doesn't affect you, it doesn't matter. But I think if we fix up on that, the youth can have a greater voice in social issues.
Okay, so I beg to differ a bit from your opinions, and I feel like the youth are a bit unmotivated when it comes to policy making. Now, for instance, we had the recent finance bill that was the finance bill that was recently passed in Parliament, and during the first reading of the bill, it got an overwhelming number of objections from people all over the country and organizations. But sadly, the youth were not really represented during those objections. Yeah, people didn't really see this youth at the forefront. Another thing is that we have this internship bill at Parliament that is still going through the stages of lawmaking at Parliament, but and it is a bill that affects us as the youth, but you do not see people talking about it. You do not. I'm very sure that not many people are aware about it. So how can we go about motivating the youth, to just speak up more to do a little bit of research, because you see these issues that go on around affect us at the end of the day. So how can we motivate them? Eric, do you mind going first?
And I don't mind.
Thank you.
I think the first change that needs to happen is individual. You need to be motivated to engage in these issues because, as I've said, the attitude of the youth is that if it doesn't affect you, it doesn't matter. So if we change that attitude, maybe the youth will be more, they'll participate more in these issues. You can see like youth in other countries, they have like a great voice, like in the USA. Any small issue, they're usually in the streets, like protesting.
Yeah.
And also another thing that I'd like to say, I think the government can be more accommodative of youth opinion because anytime a youth or any person has a differing opinion to the government, they are tear gassed. So I think maybe the government can check on that. They be more willing to listen to other opinions and to accommodate the youth opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Ongwe, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'd say, okay, on what he mentioned about maybe countries like the States where you see people actually being on the streets and actually trying to bring out their voice on a matter, I'd say perhaps on the same, maybe we could educate the youth on how to go about this. How to go about on actually voicing their opinions, because sometimes you find that people really want to voice their opinions, but how they do it, it gives the lack of views and the lack of actually having people or the government listen to them. So perhaps we could educate them. And then there's a point you made on the government. Yes, I think that one of the challenges that we're facing is that the government does not actually consider the opinions of the youth. So people find it difficult because why would I come out here and give a say if it won't actually be considered in the final decision-making process? It is just like I'm coming out here for formalities, but when it comes to the actual decision, there's no consideration of the same. So on that same point, I think that perhaps we could have accountability mechanisms to ensure that say some of these opinions that have been aired out by the youths, there's actually accountability to show that maybe this opinion was aired out in a feedback form by a youth. So while making the decisions, they should at least mention that in making the decision, we consider that this that was said by the youth, at least so that the youth can see what we are saying is actually being considered, so we can come out more. Yeah, so I think that's it.
So I think I want to take you back a little bit, Wangui, and you mentioned that those at the top of the hierarchy need to listen more to the youth because they're not Gen Z, they're not millennials, they are I don't know what other generation that is. Yeah, they are not part of us or one of us, and that's okay. So what policies do you recommend that can be adopted to bridge that gap between those at the top of the hierarchy and the youth here at the bottom? When you, in other words, at the ground level, yeah, how would you propose we bridge that gap? And are there other policies that you'd recommend to just motivate the youth and ensure that the youth are actually involved with policy making, not just in Kenya but in East Africa
at large? So I think what is important here is the gap is mainly there because of now that difference. But I'd say what I'd advise maybe that could be done is perhaps we establish more spaces that have the youth in them, like they are ideally run by the youths. So we have more spaces that have the youths running them. And then after creation of these spaces, of course there are spaces that are there and we appreciate that, but I think there should be more institutions. And then with the institutions or spaces that are run by the youth, we could establish connection, or rather a collaboration with other government institutions where they liaise in projects and run them together. That way we strike a balance between what those people in the other generation are saying and the opinions of the youth. Then we can liaise between the two institutions, the government institutions with the people on the other generations, and then the institutions with the Gen Zs. run say projects together or have collaborations on different matters, or even how will I put it, maybe forums, campaigns. They do them together. That way they get to see the things the way they see them, and this other generation seeing things the way this other generation sees. So ideally, I think institutions, collaborations, and working together will make it easier for, yeah, make it easier to bridge that gap.
Okay, and
Can I add something there?
yeah.
I think maybe a law can be passed. This may be wild, but maybe every organization should take about 20 to 50 interns. That will maybe give the youth opportunities in the workforce, and they'll have a say in maybe how the economy goes. I know that's challenging, but if we want to include the youth in making decisions and including them in the economy, you have to take that bold step and actually pass a law that every organization, if you set up in Kenya, at least have 10 interns there. Yeah.
And maybe a last point, you'd realize that when it comes to policy making, there's always an advisory board for
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But you realize most of the people in the advisory board are those who are considered experts. So it's like they're limited to these expert opinions because they pick someone who has been working in that area of the policy and put them to the board. But they forget even other stakeholders who include the youth have a say to it. So I think maybe perhaps incorporating the youth as a representative in advisory board to air out opinions on behalf of the youth on a policy, that would also take us a great mile.
Okay, thank you. So, Eric, I'd like to pose this question to you. And what role do you think that technology, or rather social media, can play in, fostering positivity among the youth and encouraging them to take to be more proactive in policy making and just to speak out against any social changes or anything of the sort. So, what role do you think that social media mainly can play?
Thank you for that question. I think social media can play a big role. It's already playing a big role, especially nowadays. I see on Twitter, every government move, you'll find a lot of people, the famous or the infamous KOT. Usually they're made up mostly of Kenyan youth. So I think it's in the beginning level, like to impact or rather to incorporate youth voices into maybe the economy and social issues. So I think social media can play a big role. It's all about how you as an individual uses the platform. So you can use it maybe to do other things, but if you have a keen interest maybe in social issues, political issues, economic issues that affect you, like the social media platforms, they are free, so you can air your opinion there.
Yeah, but how do we get people to actually go and read about such content on social media? Because once I get online, I will be really interested in looking at probably what bills are pending in Parliament, what has happened today, what the Supreme Court ruled on. I want to see entertaining stuff on social media. Once they log in, I'm not really looking forward for. I'll only look towards educative content when I probably have an exam or a CAT coming up or just a research paper. So how do we actually motivate the youth to actually consider looking at such content again on social media?
Okay, so I'd say that should be like a youth-driven initiative because we are the ones who know what we want to watch, right?
Yeah.
So like the same way maybe there's I don't know any political commentators on Spotify, the famous one like Joe Rogan. He's not old, so
Okay.
I think maybe we can do something like that. Maybe youth can come up, they create TikToks on maybe issues that are happening. You can create a podcast, not the everyday podcast about relationships. We can talk about issues that matter. So
Okay.
I think it should be youth led. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe perhaps Wangoi, if you want to add on that, I just want to ask you whether you think it will be a viable idea to have this so-called content creators coming on board and working with the government to just foster youth involvement in policy making. Will that really work?
I'd say it will work because, as you know, sometimes the youth were driven by, for the youth, for us to follow something, there's really need for influence.
Yeah.
Like for you to actually follow up something must have influenced you. So having the content creators, them being in the same generation as we are, I think they understand from what perspective we want things approached, how we want to be approached. So then with this knowledge, they will know how to approach and bring out the information that is really important to the people. But while having content creators at this, I think something else is that we should constantly remind the youth and educate them on the impact of them actually participating in these policies. Because there's no way you don't want to participate and then you want to complain when they've actually been implemented. In as much as sometimes we say there's a the government is to some extent failing, but we as youths are equally failing ourselves. So there's need to educate people on the impact and the importance of them actually participating in this. And then after we take that step, then we can look at which approaches we should take, perhaps now having content creators actually helping and taking us some steps forward with this.
Also, I think maybe the government on that point, maybe the government can revive KBC. It has been long dead. I think they can use KBC as one of the stepping stones to foster youth engagement. So, like KBC can be led by youth entirely, from the editors to, and then they can switch up the content.
Yeah, I agree with that. We can switch up the content for sure. Okay, so I'd like to remind us to speak a bit louder.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think my next question will be, so what strategies can we implement to actually just unite youth organizations with the government so that we just ensure that the youth are being involved in these projects, in projects and policy making and all that. So what steps can we do to unite these two organs?
I think that kind of takes us back to what I was saying previously, the need for joint, what I was saying previously, which is the need for joint collaborations and initiatives between the government and the youth-led institutions. That I think will take us quite a step, and maybe there could actually be permanent partnerships. Apart from collaborations and them running projects together, there could actually be a partnership where they actively now engage in each other, going to the ground to inform the youth and the rest of the people, finding a way that works for both and coming to a common ground so that at least that way we all have common goals, yeah? We all have common goals as a country. What the youth want in the policies is equally what the government wants. It's just that we have different approaches to the same. So the fact that there's a common ground with having these partnerships, it will be better because at least now with the partnership, there are many things that come in between. So it's a step. We're taking step by step by step. So in each and every step, we have both of them liaising and working together. In the partnership, it will actually work as opposed to maybe just the projects which are always coming in and then wait until the next project. The partnerships will also be a good idea.
Okay. Eric, do you have anything to add on that?
I think she's touched on the major ones,
Yeah.
but maybe the government can cozy up to the youth, like the youth content creators. I saw the other day the president invited
Yeah.
the president invited the youth content creators and influencers to State House. I think
Yeah.
that can be like a yearly event, something sort of like the White House. They have this correspondence dinner, so that can be like a annual affair where the government celebrates the media, and maybe they can have something of the sort to celebrate youth content creators.
Okay. So Eric, Wangwe talked about how the youth normally talk about some issues, yeah, but their opinions are not really taken into consideration. So what can the government do, or what suggestions do you have to promote to actually coerce the government to actually take their opinions into consideration and also work with them?
Yeah, I had Koi mention this a bit earlier about maybe setting up an accountability model of the sort where it can be accounted for, like this opinion was given weight, but maybe it lacked merit. So something like that can be, and then transparency, like the government should be transparent uh, with maybe the issues that the youth face in the country, and they should be open maybe to speak more of the youth and accept maybe negative feedback or dissenting opinions.
Okay. Ongoing, do you wish to add on that?
I think majorly that's just it. So, like you said, where maybe something that was said lacked merit, they could at least mention it. Where they feel like it didn't per se lack merit, it's in a 50-50 kind of situation where they're writing down their reports and making recommendations. At least they should acknowledge that this actually came from the youth, because you find sometimes there might be chances where ideas are stolen but credit is not given. So at least showing the youth that we're actually giving credit to what you say, in as much as it will not particularly fit in here, we appreciate that you thought this, or with you saying this we could complement it by adding this to it, so they feel that they actually have an impact in it. In as much as the idea was not wholly taken, there was some consideration to it with a compliment to whatever was added.
Yeah.
But also, I'd like to defend the government because it's not like these measures are not there.
Yeah.
For example, like before a bill is passed, there is mandatory public participation.
Yeah.
The government advertises for town halls, and maybe you go to parliament and give your opinions, but the youth, they are pathetic to
But we
such
never
issues.
see such advertisements on platforms that the youth can easily access. For instance, I can't say the last time I read a newspaper, and this calls for public participation are normally published in newspapers. Yeah.
But,
So
but
how?
the government can ask you, do you follow the Ministry of Livestock on Twitter? You don't. Maybe they post it there. You don't know. I don't know because I don't follow them. So maybe they are there.
Yeah.
Maybe the youth just need to educate themselves and maybe gain interest in these issues. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need to cast a stone. Maybe they are doing. Maybe they are there.
No, we're saying actually we are appreciating the steps that are there,
Yeah,
but then
but-
what we are giving is some sort of recommendations on what could be done better to actually now accommodate the youth more, because there might be someone who's interested, but maybe you don't have that time to peruse through a newspaper. But if it's put there in some type of way that's short, that something that is actually something that will actually influence you to take a look at it, then that might be a bit better. We appreciate the fact that there are newspapers, they post it on Twitter, on
So they should like join Instagram. I personally
It wouldn't-
advocate for that. They
It
should-
wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but Twitter, I don't know why, but
Like-
Twitter seems like the most appropriate platform for that.
Yeah, but then again, like how we have Nairobi Gossip Club, it's there, it shares the kind of information that you want to know. It doesn't say everything that we need particularly, because there's a mix of the most important things in the country and more of entertainment. Then perhaps we could have an account that only has now this important information that we need passed out to the youth. Then after that, the people don't go through it, then we'll say they did their best, because at least there's that account where you see, like how in class we have a class group and then we have an announcements group. One is very formal for things that don't want you to miss out, and the other one you can just skim and just leave things out. But then now if you miss something and it's in the announcement group, that's on you, because That's why it's there for you not to miss messages. So that way, again, the youth don't go out there and look at what is in there. Then that's on us as the youth. We'll have failed ourselves, but at least the government will have made a step to actually accommodate us, given what we are interested in and what influences us.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
So I'd like us to take a step back and just do away with the whole idea of knowledge, and let's focus on on us as the youth
Yeah.
speaking out or calling out the government when we feel that the government has done something wrong, or rather just advocating for our own rights and interests as a youth. How do we motivate people to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
I think making the content more appealing to the youth, because it's boring to read a thread of 10 pages or a document of 50 pages. Maybe make the content more appealing, hire content creators. They're all over. Maybe partnerships with the government, such that they relay information that is necessary, that affects the youth to them in a way that they can consume it.
But then, how do we motivate the youth to actually speak out for their rights? How do we tell them that this is happening and this is unfair? Or let's just even leave out the whole concept of sharing the knowledge with them. Something happens, and the youth, for instance, probably the youth of Uganda are against a certain policy. So, how do we motivate people to actually speak out?
Okay, I'd say is, there's you see how we say that for something to happen for you, there's need for you to actually have a connection. There's need for there to be a bridge linking you to this other party.
Yes.
Because trust me, if you just go out there talking, there are chances, there are times even you could just be saying something in the house and it could be ignored. But if you have that connection with the parent, you just go sit down with them and explain it to them like this. So that takes us back to now need for there to be institutions that are led by the youth. With this institution, it means they have the publicity, they have the access to the government. Now, where even not every youth is in at least an institution, but there are institutions that are there and they're linked to the government. If they now call people and rally people to actually fight for their rights, if I actually go airing out opinions on this, I know that this institution has a link to the government. So chances of them giving an ear to our voice are very high, as opposed to you just going out there in the streets without a promise that this will be hard, someone just telling you, let's just air, maybe they listen, let's just say what we have to say. Not all times they listen. Sometimes it ends up being chaotic because you are just doing a peaceful demonstration, but then again they consider it disturbance, and there comes the police with the tear gas and everything. But then if there's a different approach, like this institution is linked to the government, so chances of them being attacked are actually low, then it will actually raise the chances of there being an ear. So them recruiting or calling on to people, rallying people to actually do this with them, it will be easy. It will be an easier way to convince the youth to actually be there. So it takes us back to coming up with mechanisms. Where do we start? Because it's not a matter of just convincing people. There has to be a ground that you're using to actually convince people, not just trying to convince people without a ground that there's a guarantee we could be heard. Let's not give like the youth a 50-50. We could or we could not. Let's just give them a chance that we are doing this with the government. We've been lasting with them on this. So if we air this out, even if they decide to ignore us, we have support from various people. So they might just have to listen to us. They might not ignore us completely.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So, maybe as we wrap this up, somebody once told me that you do not have the moral authority to actually call out or point out a problem without proposing solutions. So, guys, what recommendations would you give to the government and youth-led initiatives and all other parties that can actually just encourage the youth, who have the platform to encourage the youth to actually take part in public policy and policy making. So, what recommendations would you have?
I go first. I think the government can have partnerships with the youth
Youth, uh-huh.
and the content creators
Yeah.
to pass the information they want.
Yeah, because
And-
I say, oh, sorry, yeah.
Go
Sorry,
on.
I just remembered that the normally there's a rule that ignorance of the law is a defense. But how do we ensure that people actually have knowledge? Because we also have to do our part
Uh,
as the government. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. So how?
oh, okay.
You may sorry.
Uh,
Just proceed.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I should go to the next point.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I'm talking about the revival of KBC. They have tried. So they have a new look, but I think more should be done there. They should hire more youth into the program. The KBC should mirror what the government wants the youth to do in terms
Yeah.
of public participation.
Participation.
Yeah, because that's their media company, their media organization. So if they're serious about youth participation, then give the youth a chance. Then maybe Koi will talk about the organization led by the youth. Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with what he says. I think just an addition, it takes us back to the importance of actually now telling, you know how you're saying, we're talking about ignorance of the law. I think there's need for a constant reminder because you know how if someone keeps reminding you something, you'll keep it in mind. So there's need for that constant reminder. But again, while trying to convince and remind the youth the importance of their participation, there's need for that bargaining power. And I think I'll keep going back to that. There's need for the bargaining power because you won't just come in, you won't just come telling me something. Of course, people will ask what is in it for me. Like in this case, the youth will ask if I participate, but I'm not seeing it out there. What is the need? So I think there's need for a strategy to be drawn. Take it step by step, even if it will come in slowly. At least show the youth, you haven't seen this person was actually recognized for saying this and this. We have a youth in the advisory board. We have showing someone could actually get an opportunity. Sometimes airing these views out there could get you an opportunity in there. And then the government institutions and these public institutions should, like he said, open up positions for interns. So if someone is telling you this could actually be a breakthrough for you. You could say something and it's a breakthrough for you. And, so there's need for us to show the youth they need to participate in policy making, not just for the rest of the youth. To some extent, it might actually come in as a good thing for you. So you have to do it for both you and the rest of the people, because once you get there, it's good for you, but you'll equally now stand in as the voice of the rest of the youth and actually help now bring more to their involve more youth in the policy making. And so I think we have to go back to the bargaining power and the whole steps. It was not built in a day, so we take it slowly. They take it up slowly.
Yeah, so it's a step by step.
Yeah, it will work
And
out
also-
eventually.
Yeah.
And also the government, please stop tear gassing us. We have different opinions, but we can talk amicably. Stop tear gassing us.
Because now it becomes it always ends up appearing like airing our voices actually.
It's
There's
a crime.
sound pollution.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I personally look forward to the day in which the youth can actually engage in public policy and policy making, not just engaging for the sake of engaging, but
Yeah.
actively, and that we can see probably the next time we have a controversial bill like the finance bill. I'm hoping that we can see so many youth there and just speaking out and saying their opinions. Yeah, not tear gas.
Not tear gas.
Just speaking out and engaging in that whole public policy making process amicably, and that would be really really great.
And I think something else. You see how we say you should not be afraid of professing the gospel, because
Yeah.
sometimes you'll be born again, but you're like, I don't want people to know that I'm born again, because they'll be like, you could be boring, you could not be down to do some of the things you're interested in. The same thing. I think people, the youth is actually they don't want to profess that they want to be involved in all this, because they're making it look like that's something that old people do. You're still young, live life for now. When we get there, we'll figure it out. But we should actually be professing that we're interested in these things. They are affecting us, and we are offended because things are being handled this way. So that fear of your friend looking at you in a manner that's, you're acting old. Why are you bothered with all this, with all this? I
Yeah.
think that's also a problem that we're having. But I'll say it's more of the influence again.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to us. Do comment your views on this in the comment section, and yeah, you can also follow us on all our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn. We just all over. So you just follow us and engage more with our content. Thank you
Bye.
and bye.